the average person doesn't care about you and your constant internal debates about the color of the background of your 6-second bumper ads. Get over this. The moment you realize that, you'll be a better marketeer.
This holiday season, marketers are facing their biggest decisions at a point of maximum pressure. Delivery fatigue and budget crunch are real, and it's leading to complacency around creative effectiveness in digital marketing, and that could make or break campaigns. So what can you do about it? Well, you should read the automated creative white paper called Compounding Creative, an Urgent Q4 Wake-Up Call. So you can get this on this bit.ly link, which is bit.ly/Q4 Xmas 2023. So that is bit.ly, that's lowercase, then /Q, number 4, capital X, capital M, capital A, capital S, and then 2023. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of the creative effectiveness ad tech platform Automated Creative, and it is my absolute pleasure and privilege to record this podcast. And this week is no different. I'm on a call with Sorin Patilinet, who is Senior Director of Marketing Effectiveness at Mars. Sorin, for anyone who doesn't know who you are and what you do, could you give us a bit of background?
Certainly. Thank you, Tom, for the intro. It's an honor to be here, and thank you for the invite. Who is Sorin? I'm a Romanian. I was born in Bucharest back in the 80s. I studied engineering. I'm very proud of my engineering academic background, and from day one of my career, I started working in marketing because I love advertising. So this has taken me to British American Tobacco, where I led brands from a brand marketing position, and then following a career in marketing, I decided that I needed to get a little bit more under the hood, bringing my analytical thinking into the marketing space. So I took over, I would say, a CMI or an insights role that's all about marketing effectiveness at Mars, doing a global role across all our divisions: Mars Pet Care, Mars Snacking, and Mars Food. Currently based in Brussels, in Belgium, for the last 13 years. Happily married, 2 amazing kids, and a very happy life, I would say.
And they're both sick at the minute, so we wish your kids to be very much recovered by the time this podcast goes out, I hope.
They will get better. They will get better, yeah.
So you said something that not very many people say on this podcast, which is, I love advertising, which is fantastic. What do you love about advertising? Because that sounds like it goes beyond your day job. Is that right?
I think I have my the dream job. I think I don't think I've ever imagined going to work, watching ads, talking about ads, measuring the effectiveness of ads, and then guiding people how to make better ads. And from a position of an engineer, that's a little bit strange, but I can unpack why I love advertising. As I said before, I was born in communist Romania, where for those of you that were not born in under the, let's say, the Soviet umbrella, our TV schedules were about 2 hours per night. We had only one TV station, and the advertising that you could get in the 80s was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, the kind of products they were advertising, the limited assortment of everything that we had. There were no Western goods. There was nothing really shiny. There was no shiny object there. So as I grew up, my experience with advertising was rather poor. Now, fast forward to 1989, when the revolution arrived. Immediately after, there was an explosion of advertising in Romania. Advertising became a window to the Western world. Global and Western brands started to come in, and we were super thirsty to drink from that Kool-Aid. And we were so thirsty that my favorite event at that time was a night in a cinema where you start watching ads. It's called The Night of Ad Eaters, from Jean-Pierre Boursicot, a French guy that basically selected all amazing ads from all over the world. And you go into a cinema at 9 p.m. and you're there until the morning, watching ads, eating popcorn, and basically enjoying this window to the Western world.
Just adverts all night?
Just ads all
You're
night.
joking.
No movie. No. And I think it's still going on. I mean, a couple of years ago, I saw it on my Instagram feed that they were doing it in Brussels. I tried it after I started working in advertising, and it felt a little bit different. I think everything has a time and space. For me, it was at the right moment of time. It made me fall in love with advertising. And I don't know how. I'll actually search for it, and I'll try to see whether I can send you a link.
I've never heard of that. That sounds like amazing and awful in at the same time.
It wasn't awful. It was.
No, now. If someone said you told me you're going to sit in the cinema and watch DFS ads from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m., I don't think I could deal with that. But at the time, sure, that is absolutely fascinating. So moving on, what has been the best investment of your own time, your own energy, or your own money in your career?
I don't need to think twice here. Without a doubt, launching my marketing blog, Engineering Marketing, which you can check at sorinp.com, was the best investment of my time, energy, and very little money that I did in the last 3 to 4 years. It helped me a lot. It helped me get on this podcast, first of all. It helped me crystallize how I think about marketing and the topics I talk on a daily basis by doing writing about those topics. It helped me connect with fantastic people outside of my company in the industry, but also it helped me meet people in Mars that I would have not had the chance to meet otherwise. Some call it an outside-in strategy, being you're present outside the company, and then there are some benefits, some internal benefits to that strategy. So yeah, I think that's my biggest investment, and I'm certain that my next professional challenge will arrive because I started writing this blog. So we'll call you in a couple of years to let you know.
I'm just flicking through it now. So tell me about the process, because this fascinates me. Anyone that can write, a huge amount of respect for, but anyone who can find the time to write, I don't know how you do it. So I mean, like, how often do you publish? It's not obvious from this. Are you like, right, I'm going to do a blog every week or every month? Like, you've done a couple, 3 since April, I'd say, something like that.
Yeah, like every blog that I sort of started following in marketing, it started in the COVID pandemic times. I mean, everybody was publishing, doing something different. I decided to write a blog, and I set myself the goal to write a post per week. I think I did it for the first 30 weeks, but then slowly life took over. My daughter was born in the first day of the lockdown, so
that will do it.
But I'm envious of me 2 years ago when I was able to write on a weekly basis. Today I struggle with actually coming up with the right topics. There's a lot of temptation to go to ChatGPT and then come up with a list of topics to write about. But I'm trying to not really go that way, because I think
why not? Why is that?
I'm not doing this for clicks, for likes, for any kind of let's say monetization. I'm just doing this as a window to myself and to how I think. And I don't think that ChatGPT knows me, Sorin Patilinet, as well.
Well, you can train it now. It's got that new feature where you can give it like 5,000 words about yourself. I found it quite good, actually. You go like, on the leadership team of a business called Automated Creative, we do this, creative effectiveness. And so then when it gives you the answers, you don't need to keep on telling it, which I quite like. But anyway, it's far from perfect. Anyway, so we're derailing ourselves here. So that is great work. And I'm looking forward to digging into the blog, because some of the titles are like right on my street. So we talked about an investment of your time, energy, and some money, but from a marketing advice perspective, from a marketing tip, what is that golden nugget of advice that you find yourself sharing most often?
So when it comes to marketing, this is something I always tell my colleagues in marketing and also outside marketing. The average person doesn't care about you and your constant internal debates about the color of the background of your 6-second bumper ads. So get over this. I think the moment you realize that, you'll be a better marketeer. The moment you realize that people out there aren't thinking about you or your brand, you'll be in a better spot.
So that seems obvious and evident to me. Why do people struggle with that?
I don't know. I sometimes feel we take our jobs too seriously. I mean, we're not here really to save the world. I mean, we are here to make people smile, laugh, feel better at the end of watching a piece of content than they felt at the beginning. And we should treat that process with humbleness. We've created this kind of bubble in which we live. I mean, we go to Cannes, and if you ask my friends, they have no clue what Cannes is, and we think that Cannes is the best thing since bread came sliced. We read Ad Age and The Drum as if people would read those magazines. They don't, and then LinkedIn helps us create that bubble even further. Sometimes it's nice. It could help you in your career and so on, but it's not really. It creates a different perspective than the real world perspective, I would say. So I would say be humble.
So we're at the halfway stage, and we're going to talk now about your shiny new object, which is neuromarketing. So I have a beginner's understanding of what neuromarketing is. Can you help explain to the audience what neuromarketing actually is and why it is your shiny new object?
Certainly, Tom. But first, a disclaimer. I mean, I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not trained in the study of the brain. And while I have been exposed to techniques, amazing people, professors about the topic, I don't consider myself an expert in the field because it's a field that's so broad. So neuromarketing is basically applied neurosciences to the decisions that you have to make in the marketing process. And neurosciences is simply the study of the brain, how different areas of the brain get triggered, and how different areas of the brain represent different kind of emotions, states of the brain, and so on. Neurosciences is not there to basically support neuromarketing. Neuroscience is there as a medical kind of field of study, but the applications to neuromarketing have fascinating me ever since I've been exposed to them in a Nielsen lab. I still remember that moment 8 years ago. When we did our first ad test, which looked different than asking people whether they like our ad. It really looked at the way their brains were perceiving different changes in visual, sound, and branding. So that's kind of what got me hooked, and I tried ever since to understand more about neuromarketing and to make it more to engineer it and to make it more scalable to our needs in the ad testing world.
This episode of the Shiny New Object podcast is brought to you in partnership with MadFest. Whether it's live in London or streamed online to the global marketing community, you can always expect a distinctive and daring blend of fast-paced content, startup innovation pitches, and unconventional entertainment from MadFest events. You'll find me causing trouble on stage, recording live versions of this podcast, and sharing a beer with the nicest and most influential people in marketing. Check it out at www.madfestlondon.com. Tell me about that scalable piece. So I've always been a bit skeptical about whacking 12 people in an fMRI machine and showing them some ads and making decisions off the back of it? Like, how do you make sure you've got a big enough sample set and get the scale that you need to be confident that it's telling you the right thing?
So I think you're right. I think in-lab neuromarketing studies have not really taken off because the model doesn't really work. I mean, you're right. You need to bring 30 people because that was the sample size that we thought is the right one. But of course, I mean, getting 100 people or 300 people would have exploded your budget. So we settled on 30 into a lab, make them watch content without knowing that they watch ads, and then observe their brain response. Was not something easy to do, and the industry had to be transformed by something, and COVID was the thing that transformed that industry. All of a sudden, we had no more access to the labs. We had no way to basically continue our research, and the thing that we've been asking for our research partners to do, basically to look at mobile, to look at digital first, small screens on the go at home, became a necessity. So when academics talk about neuromarketing approaches to advertising, yes, they talk mostly about EEG, skin conductivity. I don't know if you want to go in depth into the techniques, but I could geek about it. But it's EEG, skin conductivity, facial tracking, and various others. If you have to go only on mobile, if you have to get out of the lab, you basically reliant on either in-house devices or your webcam, which is a good window to part of the responsive you can have to advertising.
So what was the solution? I'm kind of guessing here that it's webcam based stuff, as you say. Is it showing people? Because one thing you said that was so obvious but makes total sense is show people ads when they don't think they're watching ads. And I know there's some solutions out there where they create a false environment of what Instagram might be like, and here's a ton of just flick through this feed and ads get shown, and then you track the response to those ads. But that's an unreal environment, because obviously it's a sample size of people just watching a fake version of the internet. So is that the best solution, or what have been the innovations recently?
I think that's a good enough solution. On the other flip of the coin, bringing people into a lab and tell them to watch something, that's really skewed. I mean, or putting them in a fMRI machine, it's really, really introducing a lot of different biases. But how we approach it at Mars is that we've tested hundreds of ads in labs and tried to understand what correlates with sales out of the numerous signals that you can get from the brain. I think we were lucky because we got a lot of trust in engaged attention, in distraction, and in positive emotions, because they were quite good predictors for sales impact or for business outcome impact. And luckily enough, those KPIs can be measured through facial. You didn't really need an EEG or something more sophisticated to do that. You just needed to up the sample. You just needed to basically accept some lower, let's say, parameters of quality, because there's a lot of noise when you move from a lab to a mobile webcam. But the solution that we came up with is, I would say, it's great for Mars, and it's good enough for testing our content.
So what do you test? Is it scamps or fully made TVCs or different variants? So what are you, obviously you can't give away the crown jewels here, but what are you able to test, and then what do you do with that data specifically?
So we've been building our own ad testing solution called ACE on the back of our history with neurosciences or neuromarketing. And ACE is measuring what I said before: attention, distraction, and emotions. And over the last 3 years, my team has tested over 1,800 finished ads or almost finished ads. providing input second by second, recommendation on how to improve responses to have a better chance of success. It takes days, is relatively inexpensive, and I would say half of the time it was used as a check the box exercise, which is not really my intent, and half of the time it was used to basically improve further a video creative asset that goes on TV, goes on YouTube, goes on various other digital platforms.
What is the data that you give in order to improve? Are you like, that copy line's terrible, or there's not enough dogs in the first 5 seconds? Like, what are the levers that you can go back to the creative and say, your creative didn't drive enough attention or the right kind of emotion? Because help me understand how you would feed back to a creative team,
I think
who probably doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah, the most common feedback that we get is ads have a high confusion or high distraction, because we're trying to cram too many objects in a scene, or we're trying to tell too many storylines in 6 seconds or in 10 seconds. So, and we see that watching the second by second attention and distraction curves, people don't get it. They basically lost. They basically looking at the ad through the facial data, and they have no emotion. Basically, they're blank faced. Our main recommendation is make it simple. Reduce, show just the feeding scene rather than showing the feeding scene and the dog jumping around. So those kind of, I would say, simple things would be some of our recommendation. But it's of course it's different case by case. But again, it's not rocket science. For me, advertising doesn't have a template, but we often overcomplicate the things.
And are you able to feedback on messaging, or is it visual? Because if you're saying like just show the feeding scene and not the dog jumping, that strikes me as like people are responding to that visually. Whereas how do you isolate whether the voiceover was the thing that was confusing or not?
That's a good point. I don't think at the end of the day, I think research is a tool that helps the marketeer make decisions. There's nothing more than that. I think any research that tries to basically give you on the plate everything you need to do is probably lying a little bit. So I don't want to discourage my colleagues to think and to make judgments. So therefore, you will not have all the answers. And going back to neurosciences, because I think that's the topic you wanted to explore. It was fascinating for me ever since I went into this field, how little we know about neurosciences and how little we know about the brain. I've started a partnership with the Wharton Neuroscience Institute, led by Professor Michael Platt, to basically get at the edge of the research on neurosciences. And we're basically now attempting to run brand equity, to read brain signals related to brand equity studies. How are brains perceived in the brain of people? And what impressed me is that yes, you get a good read, you get different areas of the brain lighting up and so on. But the interpretation of those signals is still not there yet. We still are not 100% sure that if some certain area of the brain lights up or is more used, that precisely means exactly that thing. So it's a work in progress field, I would say.
Sorry, unfortunately, we are at the end of the podcast. So if someone wants to reach out to you to discuss any of the things that we've covered today, where would you like them to do that, and what makes a great outreach message to you?
My first idea was they should reach out on LinkedIn, and they should try to be genuine and not try to sell me a solution to a problem I don't have. But if they probably mention something around neurosciences, something about advertising in communist times or the night of ad eaters, they will get my attention.
Fantastic. Sorin, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for inviting me.
Hi. Just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the Shiny New Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of a support on those channels. That would just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And yeah, if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me at tom@automatedcreative.net. That's TOM at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.